Welcome back to my keto recovery. I'm going over my results from my biometric screening. I've got a lot of interesting details. I've got a lot of notes here in front of me. I'm going to hope to get through it all here and try to explain it because not that I entirely understand it all either, but there's a lot of information here. So just to give you a little bit of background, there's the general medical community has standards that they've set in place for what they consider optimal or ideal or normal, and then what they consider high risk or dangerous or in those levels. And there's usually a standard there, but more or less they're kind of in the same range. So just to give you an idea, this company I've been with, I've had biometric screenings going all the way back to 2015. I've had a total of 5 readings up till just this week. The They were 2015, 2017, 2018, 2020, and then this year, 2021. So I've got a lot of data from them and a lot of information that I've taken from them. I've And just to give you an idea too, in 2020 I was 4 months keto into the ketogenic lifestyle, and then at this point today I'm about a year and a half, 18 months into the ketogenic lifestyle. So a lot of information. I'm going to try to go over it here with you. Hopefully I don't lose you. Like I say, sometimes I kind of don't understand it myself, but I try to interpret it the best I can, and I think I've got a good grasp of what I've got a hold of here. The other thing I'll be talking about later on is there's a gentleman by the name of Dave Feldman. He was actually I believe he was a computer network engineer or something to that effect. And he's done a lot of research on cholesterol and readings, and it's actually really fascinating. If you ever can find him on YouTube or in any podcasts, it's really fascinating, the information he's found, as far as like what and how we should be looking at cholesterol, because he differs from the medical community fairly often, or significantly, I should say, with what things we should be reading and how we should be reading them. And also, he's kind of demonstrated, if you ever want to go even deeper on him, about how you can manipulate your cholesterol scores. And it's really interesting. I have not yet done it. I don't know if I will in the future. Maybe I will, but it's kind of interesting. I'd like to even give it a try. So for the markers I have here for the ketogenic lifestyle, there's 5 markers that Quest has for metabolic syndrome, metabolic or danger for metabolic syndrome. And basically what that means is metabolic syndrome means you're at risk for a heart attack, stroke, and diabetes. This is the first year I've gotten my results, and I got a 5 out of 5 for all 5 of my results. And those were for the categories of HDL cholesterol, triglycerides, glucose, blood pressure, and waist circumference. So I passed all those markers. I got 5 out of 5 on those. And those are their big ones. There's other readings that they include as well, and things to be cognizant of. And some of my readings are good, and some of them, like I say, the medical community I think they would have a problem with it. I think if I had the same blood work with my doctor, he'd have some issues with some of my readings, but he'd also be impressed by some, I think, as well. The good markers I have, I'll go over those first. Things that have improved. The first one, and I kind of went over them. I think all 5 of these are in the 5 I just mentioned. My blood pressure was 109/69. And that's out of the biometric screenings I've had, that's the best readings. And I'm going to see if I can include this information on a screen here. That's the best blood pressure reading I've had at a biometric screening, just barely. I think I had like 110/70, so it's basically the same. But usually, and a lot of times when I go to a doctor's office, I'd notice that my readings would be, kind of really close to that borderline category. Like they'd be 118/69 or 79, somewhere in there. I have had some high blood pressure readings at times, but I think those were an anomaly. And you can see in my past history with all the biometric screens I've had, you'll see that for the most part, my readings have been in the good range, but they've been really good lately. I think what I'm attributing it to, and I have no idea if this is accurate, but I started taking magnesium glycinate probably about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and I do 400 milligrams of that. I've slept better because of that, but also I think I went to a chiropractor once, and I had another reading somewhere. I think it was a Minute Clinic or something. I can't remember what I was there for. It was my flu shot, I think, and they took my blood pressure, and my readings were kind of in the same range. Where and I haven't had that low ratings that consistently. So could be keto, but I'm wondering if magnesium is helping that. The magnesium, and it's magnesium glycinate that I'm specifically taking. It's a specific form, but maybe it could be any form of magnesium. I don't know. My waist circumference, 37. They wanted under 40, so that's why I got 5 out of 5. It's been years since I've had that waist. I bought size 38 jeans, I think maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. It's been well over a decade since I've had a waist under 40. So that was a big accomplishment. My glucose reading, 72. That's the far by lowest, and I even went back to my doctor and my blood work there. I've never had a reading that low. I've been in the 80s, I think. But my blood glucose has never been dangerous. I've had an A1C score that was dangerous. But my fasting blood glucose scores, this is the far lowest I've ever been. And that would be obviously contributed to keto because I'm in ketosis most times. And I'm not spiking my blood sugar very often because I rarely have any sugar, if any at all. Usually it'd probably be from natural sources, like, a vegetable might have a little bit of natural sugar or something. So my triglycerides, again, this is the lowest reading I've ever had, 65. That's where I ended up. And I think that's mostly due to the fact that I'm eating whole food, not as processed as much. I think that is really a contributing factor to triglycerides. Again, this is my own personal experience. I have no idea if it's accurate, but I kind of have a feeling that it is. I try to avoid like the ketofied foods, and they have like keto pancakes and keto chocolate and that kind of stuff. And on occasion, I will have those things, but it's pretty rare. But I think eating whole food that's got a very short ingredient list, is one thing that really helps you. I do have some cheese now and then, and that's probably processed more than anything I have. But you can still find good cheese that doesn't have a lot of processing in it sometimes. And but you got to be careful, I guess, with dairy. But for the most part, I'm from Wisconsin, so cheese is a part of my staple, and maybe I'll try eliminating dairy at some point, but at this point I don't see a purpose for it. The other thing that was really good and best reading I've ever had was my HDL. That was 50. Doing a little research on that, I think they actually want you to be over 60, but they consider anything over 40 to be normal. But I think optimal is considered over 60. But for me, it's the best reading I've ever had. I think personally that this is from me working out, because I've been working out pretty savagely since the beginning of the year, and even the end of the year I was doing a little bit there, but not as consistently. I've heard that really raises your HDL, so I think that's the biggest factor there and why my HDL went up, and might not be as much related to my ketogenic lifestyle, but it could be. I don't know. We don't really know, but we're taking our best guesses as it goes and doing my test patterns. So those were kind of the things I went over with as far as the readings that I had. And then the one thing, just to go over what I call my bad markers, or my bad things, my bad readings. I did have some of those, and I set some records there as well. My total cholesterol was 250, and that's the highest that I can tell I've ever been. Going back in my records, I've never been that high. My LDL was 183. Again, that was the highest ever, even previous to last year. My If you're looking at my HDL ratio, I've got a 5. So that's not necessarily, it's not ideal. I think it's right on the border of being, I think they want you to be under 5, but I'm at 5. But that's the best ever I've had. But um, maybe if I got a little bit higher HDL, I wonder if that would knock that out, and they didn't have any concerns with that. My non-HDL cholesterol is 200. That was the highest ever as well. And the other bad marker I had was my BMI, which there's controversy and discussion about whether BMI is useful as it used to be. I'm still probably overweight. I'm not denying that, but I used to be in the morbidly obese category for BMI, but now I'm just considered overweight by their scale. So, and I don't know if I necessarily want to be in the normal range for BMI. My goal is slightly still above the normal range because I want to be 180, and I'm 5'11", and I think I'd have to get to like 176 or somewhere in that neighborhood to be in the normal range. But I don't know. When I hit 180, I'll deal with it later because I'm doing a reevaluation goal to see if I want to go further, or if I want to start building muscle or maintaining. I think I'm going to be a ways yet before I hit that goal. And then, so those were kind of the bad markers, or negative, I should say. Bad is subjective, I suppose. Negative is also probably subjective, but depending on who you ask, that's kind of the details there. So what does this all kind of mean, breaking it down? Well, one person who I mentioned in the beginning, Dave Feldman, if you go to his website, it's the cholesterol code, and I'm going to try to include the links to it here. You can actually go in and put in these markers because he's got some interesting data that he's collected from people over the years about what they think is good readings, and how we should try to reinterpret the readings we have. There's some information there as far as what we were doing to figure out how we should be reading the data, because he's got some interesting information there. First, he has 3 risk reports that he runs to deal with these readings. And basically how I calculated, I put in my total cholesterol, my HDL, my LDL, and my triglycerides. And you put in this, it's like an online calculator, and you kick it out. First one that we came across, well, I'll just say there's 3 models basically that come out in a risk report. And you take a look at it, and it kind of puts it on a scale of where he thinks your risks are. My quick summary of them, out of those 3 risk reports, 3 of them were in the low risk category, and 1 of them was in the medium risk. My results from the previous biometric screening, I was all high risk. Wasn't anywhere in between. So quite a change from that as well. But these risk reports that he's run have come from, and he cites studies with each one as well. But when I ran the report with the information, they stated that my triglycerides were considered optimal, and he considered my HDL as strong. My LDL, which is probably the one that gets talked about the most, is they consider it what they call a standard hyper responder. What does that mean? It's common for people who go on low carb diets, like a keto diet, and basically you're just reacting with LDL. The thing with LDL is there's basically, when they're doing these blood work things, it sounds like, I don't know if they're not differentiating between 2 particles of LDL. They say if it's a big fluffy white LDL membrane or cell or what have you that is in your arteries, that it's in there when you get your blood work, those are not the dangerous ones. It's the smaller, more condensed particles. And just listening to some of the research, They're really suggesting that you should get a separate blood panel done, which I might do here, and see if you can differentiate between the fluffy white LDL, or not white, just fluffy big particles of LDL and the small dense ones. So they consider those more dangerous, and and Dave Feldman is actually saying too. He doesn't think, I'm not trying to blow off these LDL things, readings, but at the same time, he's not saying that you shouldn't take these seriously, because they could mean something. But basically, you should just get a separate panel done, and I might have to do that, but and take a look here in the future as well. And but yeah, that's kind of the summary of my results. It was very interesting. I was, I didn't think I was going to get all passing colors. I kind of expected that some markers might be high. I was kind of a little surprised that they jumped so high on one end, but I thought that it was possible that it might happen. And the other thing too is when I did this 4 months ago, if you look back at my data, you'll notice that I was 4 months into keto and my results were really skewed, and I had some extremes there as well. And I would say that too, if you're getting blood work done and you're taking a look at these things, it's going to be pretty off-putting when you get encountered to your results, because you'll see like, oh my goodness, I'm going to die next week, or what's going to happen to me, and you really have to stretch this out over a significant period of time. I think the general consensus I've heard is that if you're 6 months in, staying fairly consistent on a keto lifestyle, not doing cheat days or going off plan very much, there's going to be a lot of sway in there. And then after 6 months, you kind of level out. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. I still had some big sway. And just to give you an idea of the biometric screening I had in 2020 of last year, I did have a physical 3 months later, and some of my numbers were better, but also some of my numbers were worse, quote unquote, to quote the medical community, or more negative. So you kind of have to do your research and kind of go from there. But I will be I will be probably having a physical with my GP probably this summer. I'm going to schedule one, I think, and get more blood work done. I'll inquire about the LDL particles and see if I can get a test there, or maybe some other tests I could be open to. If you've got ideas, I'd love to hear them. But as far as the ketogenic lifestyle, I'm keeping through it. I obviously feel great. I feel the best I have in years, and I think it's helping my overall health as well. So I hope that you found this informative. If you have a similar experience in your journey, I'd like to hear about it. Comment whatever platform you're using on this, and check it out. And again, I'd also recommend checking out Dave Feldman's cholesterol code. I believe it's cholesterolcode.com is where you go. See if I have a website I referenced. Yeah, I didn't. But if you even Google cholesterol code or Dave Feldman, you'll find him really easily. And you can calculate in that information. It's really fascinating. He's got a ton of research and a ton of information on his website. And just check him out. So, hope you enjoyed it. Take care.